it's on. It's on. Okay. So the use is defined as Summit will maintain this store's character and style to its character, style, and stores in its chain, and will remain a department store as reflected by the current market.
Okay.
Sound good? Okay. So assignment. Back to where we were. So Summit will be allowed to assign its lease to similar operator who has similar credit rating, operation history, or operating history, and credit line. When final approval will be held by right only. Are we okay with that? Or did we want to include something else? So if, or do we want to include the part that was like, if Summit struggles to find some appropriate right will take over procuring Summit?
I mean, I don't know if that really necessarily helps us. It's just that essentially is your article. Your version of the article, just kind of seeking the ultimate approval. That's why I just didn't understand if you kind of meet those requirements.
I mean, I just like look at it as like a fail safe, and for assignment, I just thought of it like if opposed to not like if you're not finding anybody to meet our requirements, like if you keep finding people and we don't approve it, it's just you can't find anybody that has these things. We would take over and be like, you're free of that. In which case, we could do this part. Do you want to combine them? Like if they
if we completely cover the necessities.
If Summit fails to find the appropriate assignment, do we want to give it a timeline? Or
timeline as in how long it would take us to fill. I would not have a context to put that in.
To find appropriate assignment, right, development will be given the rate to take of renting space. So, and
so subject, I'm assuming then to
subject to compensation to split it says rather than subject
I think that's ultimately we're saying.
Oh yeah, so
to meet that
so
ahead of time.
basically it's the same thing, but it's reversed. Okay, so assignment, use, and now it's subletting. Okay, so for subletting, our main concern is that you would sublet to somebody that is within the satellite stores is the same business. So I think something that's along the lines of non-compete, and that would kind of be it for us.
That's the main concern.
Yeah, like non-compete, and then as long as it upholds like use, I think that's good.
Applies to what is already there.
I would just say that because it's not a direct competitor to a satellite, and we could do it both ways if that's something you're like, we
Consider
would
it
never
kind of
set
easy
you
down
up
the
to be
line.
like, oh, this satellite suddenly came,
Mhm.
you have to get rid of your sublet.
Right, if we have already a sublet in place.
We would do the non-compete.
Right, that would probably be helpful. I guess something else to consider, just because, I mean, again, depending on how market interest changes down the line, if we, realize that there is a certain interest in something that we would like to sublet, whatever kind they use. Example wise, I don't know, like I think you wanted a Godiva setup or something in the store, but there's, another chocolate company next door, or satellite wise, that maybe, I know the satellites aren't set in stone yet, but that I guess we could have kind of some type of discussions as their leases wear out, if we kind of then have the opportunity to set up something that, before a lease is renewed with a
So, like,
satellite
say,
company.
like, Godiva's lease is 5 years. At the end of 5 years, if you said you wanted to sublet those chocolate,
That we would
you
kind of have
would-
a preference as your kind
Anchor.
of anchor store.
okay.
We wouldn't go against any satellites that are operating at the time, but when it does, I guess maybe then comes time to renew leases, that becomes a possibility, to sort of discuss if it's something that we see the market is demanding, that we be able to acquire that type of purpose, so that we can continue to attract our customer base and kind of, keep in line with our competitors if necessary.
So, one other thing that is a concern is, like, how many subletters you would have, and, like, how much space that they would take up.
Right.
So if you're subletting 75% of your store, I think that's
almost like a
yeah,
assignment issue.
yeah,
I would
then we become
say.
so so I think we can both agree that all subletting would fall under use as well. That, like, they, like, remain in character and style.
In character, yes, but I would not
Not, like,
necessarily
the
assume they,
apartment.
because otherwise
So,
we wouldn't be subletting the space.
So I think we can say some of that.
But as far as
Well,
potentially like luxury goes, it would
yeah.
stay in line of attracting the same customer base.
To sublet of the character and style of the use must be maintained. So I think we both can agree on that the style will be the same.
Yes.
Okay. And then
Assuming, sorry, 1 second. Yeah, I mean, we're not really looking to change our basic kind of our fundamentals of luxury store, so it's kind of just making sure we can still cater to the market that we are serving.
yeah, I think that's accurate. Like, I feel like you guys would pick sublets. And then I think the other thing is a non-compete agreement both ways.
So for what the satellites
yeah.
are currently being.
So, once satellites have been established, Summit will not sublet to any direct competitors.
For the duration of their lease at
Yeah.
least, and then pending kind of
at-
renewal of sub.
Yeah, at renewal of lease, Summit will be notified.
And
And
then
they
kind
can
of
choose
have
if-
priority potentially as.
Yes.
Yeah,
So-
over renewing the lease of a satellite store.
Established. Sublet to any direct competitors. And vice versa.
So just to make sure it's like clarified, so and vice versa for any satellite that we might establish down the line. I guess.
Satellites established.
Or sorry, not satellites, but sublets.
Satellites. So this is established on the line. No satellites will be added after
And then maybe upon renewal of satellite leases, that we have the option, if we kind of deem fit at the time, to essentially sublet as opposed to renewing a satellite lease.
Summit will be notified. And if we choose, they will have priority. They'll have priority.
Priority to sublet over satellite renewal, I guess, to word it.
And then we okay, that's like pretty big.
Yeah.
So I think we need to like limit also the amount of sound.
Oh, I thought you meant lengthwise.
Oh no, I meant like
yeah,
what
you're
you're
a lot.
getting. Yeah, and then I just think that there should be a cap on how many sublets are allowed, just because we don't want your whole store to be subletted.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be
Which point wouldn't it just like that would end up falling into assignment?
Yeah. So I would say no more than 25% of the store could be subletted.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking after that point, like a quarter of your store.
Mm-hmm. Is that by any one individual sublet or
No,
sublets in total?
Total. Like no more than 25% of the store can be subletted.
Mm-hmm.
Could be under sublet.
I would be okay with that, but also just kind of in regards to the satellites, if upon, especially kind of right now when they are initially established as to what satellites are coming in, if we could kind of have a just like refer to or kind of talk about this amongst kind of the layout of what satellites are going to be directly kind of our neighbors, just out of concern of kind of, so we know kind of down the line what options, just what kind of market or people we're drawing in around our area and not wanting to compete with.
Small
Mm-hmm.
shopping centers, so they'll all be your neighbors necessarily, and they're all, none of them are department stores, so none of them will compete directly with you.
We just, I guess, are kind of looking for a general kind of reference to us, or like to be referenced, or at least kind of included in the conversation.
We can give you a list of like the current
potentials.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can give you final power just because.
No.
So
just kind of looking to be like kind of included in that discussion.
Be notified of all satellite leases.
Mm-hmm.
So someone will be notified of all satellite leases.
notify just until you're just telling us who they are.
Yeah. And
Which I guess
like would be like who they are and be like, okay, like Godiva Chop has a 5-year lease, they're there.
So we know down the line.
Yeah.
And
then we'd feel obligated to provide Satellite with that information for you guys. Just to like
what information?
Like if they ask, oh, like how long is your anchor store gonna be there? We would notify them like, oh, we have like a 30-year lease with them, so they're aware. So like that way we don't feel like we're hiding stuff from the Satellites. It's not a big deal. It's just be there. I think it's just probably more concern if they were like, oh, well, is your anchor gonna pull soon when they're signing up? And we can say like, no, they're there for 30 years.
Right. I'm just guessing kind of what kind of say, if any, do we have in what Satellites are going in? Just because like we're kind of like set up in this. We are being the anchor store. Obviously, not even been like finalized or anything, but being the anchor store. We would just kind of like to kind of have some type of input as to what Satellite stores are going to be finalized.
I mean, they're going to be all based on like the character and style. It all comes back to that first. So like the ones that are currently like, I think it was.
Yeah, the ones on page 2 as potentials, possibilities that have been spoken about.
So those are like the ones like they're all higher end, in line with like your store in general, and none of them compete directly with you.
So I guess long as that.
Like when we hire or when we like get Satellites, that's what we look for. Do they match you guys?
Right, as long as we're making sure they're. I think which you said was. I think was that included in the last the non-compete.
It says. Summit will, this is all of Summit. Summit will be allowed to sublet, but the character and style of the use must be maintained once a satellite store has been established. / signed their lease with right. Summit will not. Once satellite stores have been established and signed a lease with right development, Summit will not sublet directly to any competitors and vice versa. Any sublets established down the line, no satellites will be added that directly compete. Upon renewal of the satellite leases, Summit will be notified, and if they choose, they have the priority to sublet over the satellite. No more than 20% of the store could be under sublet, and Summit will be notified.
20 or 20? I think it's 25.
Oh yeah, 25. Okay. Sorry, I read it wrong. And Summit will be notified of all satellite leases.
Okay. So I guess then the only thing that I'm kind of getting at is, or do you have a cap on the lease for a satellite store? So would that be something we can potentially include just out of concern of, if the market does shift to something that we feel is necessary to include in our store, but we can't because the satellite does exist? I wouldn't want them existing for the full 30-year lease of our term as well.
You can include it, you just can't sublet it. So, like, if you wanted to sell a car, like how we keep
car
like, say we have a car store, and you want to include cars, it means you still can, because as long as you're not subletting that. So, like, Summit itself couldn't, but you can't sublet to a car, like Audi.
Gotcha.
So, like, you can sell it, you just can't sublet it.
But if it's something that we feel like we need to sublet because maybe we don't have the resources or so to provide it ourselves, I'm just wondering if because 30 years is a pretty substantial time, I would just hope that, I'm looking to essentially the satellite stores are not going to go.
All the leases for satellite stores are shorter than 30 years.
Are they capped, or could there be a cap to a certain point so that we can reevaluate kind of their leases after a certain amount of years?
I think that's just giving, no offense, you guys too much power for already saying, like, if a lease ends, you guys already get priority. Also dictating how long the lease is. Just
not dictate. That's why I'd kind of rather be like agreed upon number. But essentially, I feel like our presence is of more importance to the mall's development as a whole, as opposed to like satellite stores.
Typical length is 10 years.
Okay, so if it was like capped even at 10 years, so that at least at most those leases could be evaluated at that.
I think they could be. I just don't want to say they have to be capped because you could technically then satellite sublet all of my satellite stores, and then I don't have any satellite
I mean,
stores.
that would,
If
no,
like
I mean,
something like
I
chooses,
feel like that would take
if,
up
like,
more than
Tiffany's-
25% of my
Yeah.
store anyway, so I wouldn't.
yeah, I just think like if Tiffany's said they want to be there for 30 years, I don't want to limit them to 10, just based on like, because it's saying to them like, hey, in 10 years, Summit may or may not want to take over what you're doing. I just don't want to put them in a position of that. And I think because you already have preference and priority over lease satellites, which is huge, I just don't feel comfortable giving that to them as well.
I also
think-
just feel like they're
I
doing
feel like
so.
we have to sacrifice one or the other. We
Yeah.
have to sacrifice a length of time for lease or you guys saying priority, because else it's too much power for you guys to hold and not enough of our own control. Because then you have a lot of say in the business.
Well, I know, but I also think that it would be assisting you in the sense that if we were Tiffany's, for example, and then we wanted some other luxury jewelry line subletting from us, you're still attracting the people that want that, but you now
But
have the
then-
option to pull in another satellite and attract a whole nother realm of something that isn't even existing in the mall.
But the problem for us would be, so you say you want the sublet, we would have to give it to you as stated by this. Then I have an empty store that I now have to find a sublet for, or I have to find a satellite for, and we may or may not have that satellite ready. So if, say like the market is good,
Well, you
For
know when the
jewelry?
lease is kind of about to expire.
but you guys don't necessarily have to make that decision, and then the lease expires and I'm in a place where I need to find somebody else.
But we would kind of, I guess, have a sense if it was
I think-
something we'd want to sublet or not.
So I think you have to, I think we need to include in it that the.
I mean, because we are also limiting our
Summer.
size of how much we can sublet in addition to under what conditions.
I think 1 year in advance.
For
would
if-
get- so like we'll tell you, okay, like their lease is up in a year, and you have to let us know then. That way we have a year
To
to
prep.
say that, and then I think if they choose, they can have priority over for their sublet over that. I think that's huge. That's so much that we're giving you that in terms of the power that you hold over the control of the satellites is so much that we can't tell a store no in terms of 10 years down the line.
Right, but I'm just saying when you set up the contracts initially, if we just had a sense of how long
I mean,
they're gonna last,
like you
if
could
we know they're gonna last no
like,
more than 10
they
years,
are 10 years.
that's what.
That's like the
Okay.
typical contract is.
Mhm.
So it's only like extreme circumstances that they would be longer than that. Like nobody's going to be signing a 30-year lease. It's just not.
So could
typical.
it not just be included that there'd be a cap on the 10 years?
No, because then we have to get rid of the other.
But we just
It would
added in
negate
the
it.
whole 1 year
Well, that's just-
notification now.
But that doesn't change anything. That's just so we can
Mhm.
find a new tenant. Like you still get priority. That doesn't affect you.
Right. I
But
just thought it only came up because of the 10-year thing. That's
no,
all.
that only came up because I realized if we let you know like their lease is up tomorrow and you say yeah,
Mhm.
then we're empty space, which is bad for the whole mall.
I see.
The 10 years is typical, so I feel like that's fair, and that's what most people are going to sign. I just don't want to give any
Okay.
express
Could
written.
we just be notified if there was anything that went in for longer than 10-year lease?
I mean, yeah, because you're being notified of all satellite leases.
And their lease agreements or whatever?
Yeah, well, their lease would be like they're there
Yeah.
for 10 years. Okay, are we done?
Okay.
That'd be awesome. Okay, so we covered.
And then we
I'll
have,
type this all up. So we're gonna just say in terms of, it would be Article 22. The premise hereby, it's not the same first line. Okay, yeah. So the same first line.
we don't even
So
have to
for
write,
any
I
lawful
think, Article
purpose
22, we can probably just type up
provided
these are
that,
the
yeah.
3 conditions. Conditionals.
22. So like the first line, and then we'll just say provided the following.
Okay.
And then, so I can type that up and then I'll, yeah.
Okay. There we go, there's that.
There